The message came through just as I was finishing an evidence summary at my desk. A sharp buzz that made my heart jump. Mom, Grandma, and Grandpa are moving all our stuff to the basement. They won't listen to us. The words blurred as I reread them, an icy pulse running through me. I stood there in my office, fluorescent lights humming, the smell of coffee stale in the air, and tried to process what my son Marcus was saying. I'm Elizabeth Morgan, 36 years old, mother of 2, and senior paralegal at a mid-sized law firm where drama usually arrives in the form of depositions, not family coups. But on that particular Tuesday, my ordinary workday cracked open with panic. Before I could gather myself, my phone chimed again. Your room is perfect for Lily. That predictably came from my mother-in-law, Helen. She needs the space more than Marcus and Sophia. They can share the basement. It's finished anyway, and they're old enough to understand. I stared at her text, jaw tightening. I could practically hear her decisive voice through those neat punctuation marks. Lily, my brother-in-law Mark's daughter, 8 years old, and their sunshine child, was apparently moving into my daughter's room, my children's room. Mark had lost his job 6 months ago, and my in-laws had gone from sympathetic grandparents to overzealous landlords of compassion. I typed back carefully, fingers steady even though my pulse wasn't. Please stop moving my children's belongings. We'll discuss this when I get home. The reply came instantly, smugly. There's nothing to discuss. I stood there, my legal brain clicking into motion like a storm-proof switch. Keep records, monitor messages, note the timeline. They'd crossed boundaries before, moved things, changed schedules, imposed their vision of family order, but this was something else. The basement. Marcus was 14, Sophia 12. Since the day we moved into that house, my mother's house, they'd been told the basement was off limits. Too musty, too many exposed pipes, too much risk. Those were Helen and George's words. Now suddenly it was perfectly fine living space because their favorite grandchild needed an upgrade. I looked up at the photograph on my desk, my late mother's warm smile frozen in happier times. When she'd left me this house 5 years ago, her voice had been sure and steady. Always protect your children, Lizzie. Somehow I could hear it again, firm as ever. 2 years after inheriting it, I had agreed to let my husband's parents move in. Robert had convinced me it would only be temporary. They just need a little help until they get back on their feet. Foolishly, I'd believed him. Their little help had turned into guaranteed territory. My phone buzzed again. Mom, they're taking down our posters, Sophia texted. Grandma says they're too childish for Lily's taste. That did it. My professional calm cracked. I snatched up my purse and car keys, messaged the kids, "Stay calm, I'm coming home, everything's going to be okay," and all but ran to the elevator, my heels clicking like gunfire. The 20-minute drive back to the suburbs felt endless. I kept rehearsing calm arguments in my head, measured, logical, but underneath, rage simmered like lava. I knew exactly what waited for me, control cloaked as kindness. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the sight that met me made my breath catch. Marcus and Sophia were sitting on the front steps, red-eyed and shaking. Inside the open garage, piles of their belongings had been dumped carelessly. Books, clothes, gaming console cables tangled like vines. Sophia's art supplies crushed in a box marked miscellaneous. And my mother-in-law stood at the door, arms folded, her chin high with smug authority. Elizabeth, good. You're home, Helen said, lips curling into an approving smile as if she'd just organized a charity drive. We've made some changes for Lily's benefit. The children are being a bit dramatic. I walked right past her, kneeling beside my kids. Pack your bags, I said calmly but loud enough for Helen to hear. Just the essentials for now. Helen's head snapped back. What? Where do you think you're taking them? To a hotel, I said flatly, standing tall. Since you've decided my children don't deserve rooms in their own home anymore, she scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. The basement is perfectly adequate. Lily needs— What about what my children need? I interrupted sharply. Their privacy, their sense of safety, their right to exist in their own space. George appeared behind her, hands in his pockets, expression full of wounded righteousness. Lily's been through so much since her father's situation, he said. She needs a proper place where she can thrive. I didn't answer him. I helped Marcus and Sophia gather what little they could. Robert, my husband, was at work, as usual, absent when his parents crossed yet another line. He'd sigh and say, "Try to keep the peace, Liz, as though peace should only ever come from my silence." "Mom," Sophia whispered, clutching her backpack. "Are we really leaving?" "Just for a little while, sweetheart," I said gently. "Trust me." Helen's voice chased us down the walkway. "You're being ridiculous, Elizabeth. Think about what this will do to the family." I turned once, meeting her stare. "Oh, I am thinking about family," I said evenly. "I'm thinking about how you've forgotten whose house this really is." That wiped the smugness right off her face. She blinked, uncertain. George frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled faintly. "You'll find out soon enough." We drove away beneath a sky-streaked pink by the sinking sun, my children quiet, their faces reflected in the car windows. In the rearview mirror, Helen and George were small figures huddled on the porch, already plotting how to spin all this to Robert. They would talk about me being hysterical, ungrateful, cruel. They wouldn't realize that by tomorrow, they'd get the kind of clarity only legal documents can bring. "Mom?" came Marcus's voice from the back seat. "What's going to happen now?" I caught his eyes in the mirror and gave a small, sure smile. "Now, sweetheart, we're going to teach Grandma and Grandpa a very important lesson about respect and property ownership." The hotel I'd chosen was only 10 minutes away, close to their schools but far from the chaos. When we arrived, I let the kids decompress while I answered message after message from Robert, each one angrier than the last. "What are you doing?" "Come home. We can talk about this." I ignored them all. Tonight, I told myself, was about safety, about peace. Tomorrow could handle the war. The next morning, before sunrise, I dressed sharply, packed the documents from my office safe, and headed to work early. My mother's lawyer had told me to keep everything secure, proof of ownership, notarized, airtight. Back then, I'd thought she was being overly cautious. Now she felt prophetically wise. By the time I arrived, my phone was a hive of notifications. Robert's voicemails were a mix of pleading and threats. His parents' texts alternated guilt and manipulation. Even Mark, whose daughter had sparked this ridiculous takeover, had chimed in. "Lily needs stability. Please don't make things harder for her." Not one of them mentioned Marcus or Sophia. Not one. I opened my office safe and retrieved the folder that held everything. The deed, the correspondence, the notarized statement proving beyond question that the house was mine alone. My colleague, Jessica, a real estate attorney and my quiet accomplice through all this, appeared at my door. "Today's the day?" she asked, eyes bright with empathy. "More than ready," I told her, slipping the deed into my briefcase. The process server should be arriving at the house, about now. I'd asked him to deliver the documents precisely at breakfast, Helen and George's sacred morning ritual. Everyone would be there except, of course, my children, who'd been deemed unfit for the table now reserved for family. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Robert, this time. "What the hell, Elizabeth? Why is there a process server at our door?" I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the conference room where Jessica and I would meet my husband within the hour. I suspected his parents had already called him in full panic. Good. Let them feel what boundaries sound like when written in legal ink. The hour crawled by as I watched messages pour in. Helen's outrage, George's disbelief, Mark's manufactured guilt. Then, finally, Robert stormed through the conference room door, face red, papers in hand. "What is this?" he barked, waving the eviction notice like it might burst into flames. I sat calmly at the table, Jessica at my side. "Sit down, Robert. We need to talk about the house. Specifically, who owns it." "What are you saying?" His voice cracked between anger and confusion. "We own it together." "No," I said softly, sliding the deed across the table. "We don't. My mother left the house to me. It was never joint property." He froze, staring. His lips parted helplessly. This can't be right." "It's accurate," Jessica said, professionalism wrapped in steel. "The property is solely in Elizabeth Morgan's name. Your parents have been guests, and those guests have now violated the rights of the legal owner's minor children." Robert sank down, eyes moving from my calm face to the papers. "But they're my parents," he whispered. "They need a place to stay." "They need to respect the people giving them that place," I said evenly. "They cannot evict my children from their own rooms to crown Lily the princess of the hallway. They need to remember whose house they're living in." Robert's voice was small now. "And Mark and Lily, what about them? Where are they supposed to go?" I looked at him, the man who once promised partnership and had delivered silence in the face of disrespect. My answer came out cool and final. "That's not my problem," I replied, though my heart ached for my niece. "Mark needs to step up and find his own place. He's been living off your parents' goodwill for too long, and they've been living off mine." Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Mom, Grandma, and Grandpa are packing their things. They look really angry." Good. The process server had done their job. "The eviction notice gives them 30 days, I explained to Robert. "That's more than generous considering. They try to force our children into the basement without any discussion." "You can't do this," he protested weakly. "Actually," Sheik and Jessica interrupted, "and if your parents fail to comply with the eviction notice, we're prepared to take further legal action." Robert stared at me, really looking at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "Why did you tell me about the deed? Would it have made a difference?" I asked quietly. "Would you have stood up to your parents when they decided to take over our children's rooms? Would you have protected Marcus and Sophia's rights to feel secure in their own home?" Hissolence was answer enough. "I love you, Robert," I continued, my voice softening slightly. "But our children have to come first. Your parents have been pushing boundaries for 2 years and you've let them. Yesterday they went too far." He rubbed his face with his hands, suddenly looking tired. "What do you want me to do? I want you to support this decision. I want you to help your parents and Mark find new places to live. Most importantly, I want you to understand that our children's well-being isn't negotiable." As Robert left the conference room looking defeated, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The hard part wasn't over. There would be more drama, more guilt trips, more accusations of betrayal. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt in control of my own home again. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from Sophia. "Grandma's crying and saying we're tearing the family apart. Are webbed people, Mom?" I quickly typed back, "No, sweetheart. Sometimes standing up for what's right feels wrong at first, but I promise you, we're doing the right thing." The next few weeks were a storm of emotions and accusations. Helen and George alternated between icy silence and dramatic outbursts, making the house feel like a battlefield. Mark had already found an apartment, taking Lily with him. Apparently, he'd been saving money but preferred living rentrée at his parents' expense, or rather, at my expense. One evening, as I helped Marcus and Sophia move back into their rooms, Helen appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed. "I hope you're happy," she said bitterly. "You've destroyed this family." I continued hanging Sophia's art back on her walls, refusing to take the bait. "No, Helen. You destroyed this family when you decided my children were less important than your grandchild." "We were trying to help everyone," Shep protested. Lily needed her father to step up and find his own place. I interrupted. "Instead, you ennobled his dependence and tried to sacrifice my children's well-being in the process." George appeared behind her, his face stern. "We found a condo," he announced. "We'll be out by the end of the week. Not that you've left us much choice." "I'm glad to hear it," I replied calmly, smoothing Sophia's bedspread. "I hope your new place helps you remember the importance of respecting boundaries." They left without another word. but I could hear Helen crying dramatically in the hallway. Once that sound would have filled me with guilt. Now it just reinforced that I'd made the right decision. Robert had been staying at a hotel, claiming he needed space to think. He came by that weekend to talk, looking more humbled than I'd seen him in years. I spoke with Mark, he said, sitting at our kitchen table. He'd admitted he'd been taking advantage of the situation. He's actually making good money at his new job. He just didn't want to spend it on rent. And your parents enabled that behavior? I added, pouring us both coffee. Just like they enabled his irresponsibility when we were first married. Robert nodded slowly. I see it now. How they always coddled him, made excuses for him. I was so used to it, I didn't realize how unfair it was to you and the kids. From upstairs came the sound of Marcus's laughter. Real, genuine laughter I hadn't heard in weeks. He and Sophia were decorating their rooms, reclaiming their spaces. The sound seemed to affect Robert deeply. I failed them, he said quietly. I failed you too. Yes, I agreed you did, but you can do better now, starting with supporting this change instead of fighting it. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I want to come home, he said. You want to make this right? I squeezed his hand, but kept my voice firm. You can come home, but things will be different. Our children come first, always. No more letting your parents overstep. No more enabling Mark's irresponsibility at our family's expense. I understand, he said. And for the first time, I believed him. The day Helen and George moved out, there were no tearful goodbyes, no dramatic scenes. They packed their care in silence, pointedly ignoring me as I supervised from the porch. But just before they left, Helen turned to me. You think you've won, she said, her voice cold. But you've lost something precious. Family. I met her gaze steadily. No, Helen. I protected my family, my children. You're the ones who forgot what family really means. As their car disappeared down the street, Marcus and Sophia came to stand beside me. Are they going to hate us forever? Sophia asked quietly. I pulled her close. They don't hate us, sweetheart. They're just learning a hard lesson about consequences. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, even when it hurts. That evening, we had our first peaceful family dinner in weeks. Robert was back home. The kids were laughing and the house felt lighter somehow. As I watched my family truly together for the first time in years, I thought about my mother. She left me this house as a legacy, a foundation for my children's future. By standing firm, by refusing to let others diminish that legacy, I'd honored her memory and protected what mattered most. Mom, Marcus said suddenly, I'm proud of you for standing up to them. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm proud of you too, both of you, for being so strong through all of this. Robert reached over, squeezing my hand. We all are, he said softly. You did the right thing. Later that night, as I tucked Sophia into bed in her own room, not the basement, never the basement, she hugged me tight. I love you, Mom, she whispered. Thank you for fighting for us. As I closed her door, I caught sight of my reflection in the hallway mirror. I saw what Helen and George had missed, what Robert had finally recognized. Not just a daughter-in-law or a wife, but a mother who would move heaven and earth to protect her children. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the battle, but in choosing which battles to fight. And sometimes protecting your family means standing up to the very people who should have been protecting it with